If you take an inflating currency and exchange it for a deflating currency, you win. Is written in the ancient tomes of Adam.
El precio es más rápido hacer el...
Well, yeah, while under the thumb of IMF, they can't do anything, sadly. Yeah. What is this? A reminder. Oh, here, living with nearly 100%. Here, this is a good way to understand what's going on in Argentina.
Papel higiénico. Papel higiénico de 4, puré de tomate, sal, azúcar. Después también detergente, lavandina, desodorante.
Carmen Ocon is trying to get pantry staples. But inflation in Argentina has soared to nearly 100%, so she can no longer afford them. The way to get things is often going on Facebook to barter. Here it's called el trueque.
Ahí tengo foto. Todo para hombre. Yo trabajo en casas particulares por hora. Antes me alcanzaba, pero ahora por día tengo que hacer hasta 2, 3 casas. Pero ahí está que por lo que te pagan no te alcanza, porque todo está caro.
So how does el trueque help you? How does it help your family?
Ahora lo hago, por ejemplo, 2 veces a la semana. Generalmente me salva de comprar lo que me hace falta cuando no tengo la plata. ¿Viste?
This is the thing, is like people always find a way to survive, and it's usually always like relegating back to like a barter system or black market shit, always. Like theft and black market. Like a non-taxable and like implementation of like very niche localized economies that are not taxed and also are price controlled.
Subimos lo que tenemos a las páginas de los grupos, hay muchísimos miembros, la mayoría son mujeres. Subimos lo que tenemos y pedimos lo que queremos pedir.
So what are the products that are most in demand in the groups? What do people need?
El azúcar, la yerba, que aquí se usa yerba, todo el mundo toma mate, ¿viste? Galletitas dulces para los chicos, fideos, porque ya no, es como que el fideo también se fue muy caro.
El trueque is something that helps you, but you also see it and you feel it as something that is to help others.
Es como que se hace una red.
I don't know enough about like how the Argentinian working class view leftist politics due to like center left Peronist policies. I suspect it's probably not favorable, considering that they voted for a fucking freak who is like literally the exact opposite expression. So Trotskyists get 3% of the vote here. I mean, but that's whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah, there's always shit like that. That doesn't mean anything. Betrayed, that's why the working class is going more and more reactionary.
¿Viste? Se arma una red. Te sirve a vos y le sirve al otro. Quizás empieza como que una mano solidaria. Yo te ayudo y vos me ayudás. Sí.
People in Argentina know their way around an economic crisis. In the early 2000s, the economy collapsed. Many turned to bartering clubs to get by. Things have bounced back since then, but inflation remained a persistent problem, and now it's at its highest in more than 30 years. There's no one reason for this, but a major problem is that the government spends...
Yeah, you laugh, but would you not love a 3% vote for hardcore leftists in the U.S.? Come on. First of all, we have an entirely different structure in our Congress. And also, secondly, we do kind of have that. And people yell about the third-party votes all the goddamn time. We have a duopoly, so it's a little bit different.
Spends more than it has. To keep up, it borrows or prints more money, which devalues a currency. This administration has tried a slew of policies to curb inflation, such as price controls, increasing salaries, and negotiating debt with foreign lenders.
La inflación es un fenómeno histórico en la Argentina. Ha sido un callejón recurrente del que pareciera ser imposible salir.
With the value of the peso plummeting, people are rushing to buy dollars. But the government limits who can make exchanges and how much they can get, creating a vast illegal market.
This is literally a mechanism of survival. I know this from, again, like I said, from my personal experience. You have to do this. There is no other way. There's no other way to survive in a country with 150% inflation. Like, there's no... People will just die.
Downtown Buenos Aires is packed with arbolitos, money exchangers selling dollars for about twice the official rate. And some savvy arbolitos, like Fernando Santangelo, will deliver them right to your door. On a good day, he's exchanging up to $20,000 for clients all across Buenos Aires.
¿Cómo estás, amigo? Tranquilo, ¿y usted? ¿Cuánto me pediste? 5, ¿no?
5 son para él y 2 para...
Acá están todos mis compañeros ofertando, mira, ¿eh? Vendo $5.000 en 316. Yo publico... Y acá tengo muchísimos grupos. Todos estos grupos, todos están activos. Comprando, vendiendo, no paran. A veces hasta las 12 de la noche están todos comprando, vendiendo, y el que le sirva la hora porque tiene los pesos, tiene los dólares.
The illegal market is so widespread that Santangelo says that some of his clients are police officers and government workers. He also says that arbolitos like him get fed the rate of the street dollar, directly from people inside the central bank.
Este es el grupo de difusión. Por aquí es que yo sé cuando sube y cuando baja. Es como alguien que está infiltrado adentro que...
He said, ha 360 is now at 1,000. I mean, dude, this is... Dude, I know I always talk about how Flexicans are Turks, but this is the most Turkish thing I've ever seen. I mean, I don't think Turkey has like a secondary market for currency like this.
Nos los pasa a nosotros que trabajamos en las casas de cambio. Acá yo pago por estar en este grupo, yo pago 4,000 pesos por mes. Todos los que estamos acá pagamos.
The central bank denies any involvement in setting the unofficial rate and says that it collaborates with authorities to crack down on the illegal exchange market. Argentina has a general election later this year, and inflation is a hot issue. Mercedes D'Alessandro is a former top government official.
It's kind of wild how many countries on the planet live like this. Actually, like, it is kind of... Everyone in the chat's like, oh, dude, this is so Iran coded. Oh, this is so Egypt. This is so Turkey. This is so Syria. Interesting to consider where all of these countries are where they are and what their history looks like. I mean, it's most of the fucking planet. All of it is like this, specifically to prop up the few Western nations that benefit from unequal exchange in this regard. Let me guess, America bad? Brother, come on. I mean, no, actually, it's not America bad. These guys are just this way because they're, I guess, servile in their nature. They're just genetically inferior. It certainly has nothing to do with like direct intervention from the Western world, from Western capitalist forces, and has everything to do with, has nothing to do with this, and everything to do with that they're just like they're peasants. They're just like born to be peasants. They're inferior. Except with Argentina, they literally fucking did have kind of that mentality to a certain degree and brought in a lot of Europeans who came in, and yet I guess they still weren't able to get out of that inferiority, the genetic inferiority of being in the Southern Hemisphere. It's a similar concept. You know this from domestic politics. If you literally have been following my coverage on Black Lives Matter or domestic policy in the United States of America and white supremacy and its influence, then you already know this. There are two ways out of this conversation. Either in the United States of America, when you look at domestic politics, you believe that there are some intrinsic factors as to why black people and brown people are just worse off, okay? What is it? And if you believe that there is like an intrinsic factor, then you believe that they are genetically inferior somehow. You can mask it and say it's actually their culture, that's what it is, and not their race, but ultimately it devolves into scientific racism, right? Or you believe that there are external factors like systemic racism, capitalism, purposefully keeping people down to create a permanent underclass, to literally have a newer version of slavery that is codified by our Constitution, that is perfectly legal and valid. And if you believe that, then you believe that there is systemic racism, right? And I believe that. I think that that is what's going on. Okay? Surely racism is responsible for hyperinflation. No, brother. That's not what I'm saying at all. You're misunderstanding my point. You either believe that like Argentina, Egypt, Syria, Turkey, Iran, all of these other countries that we just mentioned have dog shit economies due to the fact that they are due to some like intrinsic factors. Like they are just personally not smart enough in comparison to these beautiful European democracies that we look to. Or you believe that there are some other external forces at play. How do you respond to the argument that culture explains the disparity? Black culture is American culture. The idea that like black people respond differently to black culture than white people, which consume more black culture than black people do because there's more white people in America than black people, is just pure racism. It's just racism, but with like an additional layer on top of it, an additional coat on top of it. So instead of saying like black people are racially inferior, you say black people are culturally inferior. Except that's America's culture. So what is it? Why is it that black people are impacted by black culture in different ways than white people are? Perhaps it has nothing to do with culture and everything to do with systemic conditions that black people were subjected to, and all poor people are subjected to in general too. Their hyperinflation is directly related to the American currency dictating how they operate. So when America feels any squeeze, we push the weight off on the places like Argentina. Instead of stressing the American worker more, historically, we push it into the global south. Americans are feeling it now because it's so heavy. Yes, because it is destined to collapse. There's only so much squeezing you can do. Anyway, a lot of things, a lot of if you are principled and you understand and you look at things from a dialectical materialist perspective, that same dialectic exists both domestically, and you can look at that domestic dialectic and infer things globally as well. Obviously, it's a bit reductive, and there's a lot more reading that you must do to fully comprehend it. But it is the truth. It is the exact same thing. You can extrapolate this information by looking at your own personal experiences. It's a good way. It's a good starting point. See, Scooby-Dio says, I applied lots of stuff that I learned from you in Argentina law. Thanks, I guess. Don't thank me. I'm just fucking rehashing things that much more intelligent people have said before me. All right,
in the Ministry of Economy.
Sin duda la inflación es un factor que va a incidir en las elecciones a nivel político porque estamos hablando del salario, de poder llegar a fin de mes. Son siempre un elemento que mueve el voto.
What do you think about the policies that this government, previous governments as well, but this government has put in place in order to deal with this economic crisis?
Usando metáfora futbolera, corriendo atrás de la pelota, ¿no? Es como pasan los problemas y vas a apagar el fuego, vas a apagar el fuego. Hace tiempo que no hay un plan económico.
We've got a very contentious presidential election at the end of 2023. How do you see the kinds of discussions that are already happening around inflation, around the economic crisis here? How do you see that playing out politically?
Yo veo que las figuras de la oposición sí toman todas las frustraciones y los nervios y fogonean con eso un discurso muy de derecha radicalizado. Creo que eso también está pasando. Hay muchos discursos vacíos. Hay muchos discursos que dicen, la inflación, pero no proponen ninguna solución.
It's not just opposition voices on the right talking about inflation. In Argentina, the street is a really important political tool. These are low-income earners and welfare recipients who are an important voting bloc for the current government. They're out here demanding higher wages and criticizing economic policies pushed by the previous right-wing administration, but also by this coalition left-wing government. The fact that they're even doing that is a sign that cracks are beginning to show in that coalition ahead of the next elections.
Los reclamos para el gobierno hoy son los mismos que tuvimos siempre, nada más que con otros gobiernos. A este lo votamos, con este venimos siguiéndolo y nos está defraudando. No votamos para eso.
Do you still support the government?
Sí, nosotros estamos con la democracia, nosotros nunca vamos a estar con el golpe de Estado, ni tratando de sacar un gobierno, ni nada. Simplemente le estamos dando acá la información de que no está nada bien. Le decimos, estamos pasándola mal, traten de trabajar para nosotros y con nosotros.
What is the extra? All right.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Nowhere is the impact of inflation more dramatic than in the grocery store.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
South American here. In the face of these results, these elections, I see a lot of people arguing that it's going to be great because it's right-leaning and it's not socialism. And an argument in opposition for socialism is that it doesn't work because of corruption. Wouldn't a libertarian government allow an easier way for corruption to prosper? Not that it's a valid argument against socialism, I believe. Yes, of course. The only difference between a socialist government engaging in corruption, or a socialist government engaging in corruption, and a right-leaning government engaging in corruption is that one codifies the corruption, or at least like takes away the mechanism that is supposed to be engaging with corruption, the regulatory bodies that are supposed to say, no, you're corrupt, you can't do this. One basically says that they're going to combat corruption. Well, both of them say they're going to combat corruption, but like one actually will create some kind of some agencies that are tasked with dealing with it and then refuses to. The other one just says, oh, the best possible way forward is by not having such an agency at all, as a matter of fact, and just taking it off the fucking hinges.
Eso es importante. 5. Vamos todavía. 800.
As prices go up, everyday purchases require piles of cash.
The solution to this inflation is actually not complicated, but politically impossible for these dogs, Western capitalism, import substitution, industrialization, and aligning with countries who will help your own internal industries become independent. I saw this in the 80s in Brazil after the military dictatorship was ousted.
Bueno, que salgan ricos los postres. Chao. Venimos con una bola.
Solution to inflation is Bitcoin, but nobody wants to listen yet. Dude, you're right. Exactly what happened here in Brazil. PT's government allowed corruption investigations to happen while Bolsonaro simply shut down any attempt to do so.
Tremenda. Tal vez determinadas empresas están teniendo 2 aumentos por mes. Fíjense que todos los productos, todos tienen el cartel, porque lo más importante es blanquear la información al cliente. Lamentablemente, escribir el producto y escribir...
ISI is fine, but the Jacobsian solution is missing the price-fixing aspect that is utterly necessary to prevent crisis price gouging. But I don't understand. The previous government also said that they were implementing price gouging. Price gouging combat measures. If you take an inflating currency and exchange it for a deflating currency, you win. Is written in the ancient tomes of Adam.
El precio es más rápido hacer el...
Well, yeah, while under the thumb of IMF, they can't do anything, sadly. Yeah, that's the other.
What do your customers say about these price jumps and the frequency of them?
El consumidor está enojado. el hecho de que venga un cliente y encuentre un precio y al otro día otro y al otro día otro, uno pone en riesgo esto, el capital más importante que tenemos, que es la confianza de nuestro cliente.
What kind of impact does that have on your own earnings?
Muy complicado para el tema de nuestra rentabilidad, ya que nos ha pasado de comprar un producto, traerlo, ponerlo en góndola, vamos a volver a reponer el producto al mayorista, lo compramos a veces a mayor valor de lo que lo estábamos vendiendo. Entonces destruye nuestra rentabilidad.
I'm Michael Learmont,